Namaste and welcome to React Bits. I am Damodar Loni and today we are going to talk about the upcoming version of Appwrite. It is one of the highly anticipated release that I myself have been waiting for. Here I have Appwrite built from the working branch released as a alpha version. Let us start by creating a new account. Okay, up until now we have not seen any changes, but now there is the most apparent change here. While creating a project, now you have a way to provide a custom ID for your project. Up until now, the IDs were automatically generated, but now you have the option to either auto-generate it like before, or you can tap this edit button and name your project just like and I can name this my project, and if I tap create, this will create a project with custom ID that we just provided. If you see here in the URL, you can see my project as the project ID. That is one of the awesome feature that surely will help lots of developers. Okay, so this release is focused on database. We will look at what changes we are getting in our database. So let's see. Database. Okay, like before we have collections tab, but we have a new tab here, uses, that shows some cool charts. Okay, we have no data at the moment, that's fine. Let us add a collection. Here again we have the option to choose whether to generate the collection ID or whether to have a custom one. So here I will again take custom ID and then I will name this articles. Here we can see another cool feature that has landed in this refactor, that is the permission for collections and documents. Previously there was a confusion regarding what the collection permissions would do. How would it affect the document permissions? Now we have cleared that up by adding a permission level. So you can set a permission level to either document or collection. What happens is if you add a document level permission, collection permission will not affect the documents, or collection permission will not have any effect. You'll have to provide permissions in each document. However, if you set a collection level permission, the document permissions will be overridden by collection permissions, so you'll not have to provide permissions in any of your documents inside that collection. This saves a lot of time when you don't need each individual document level permissions. You can just provide a collection level permission and permissions in the collection so that you will not have to provide any permissions in your documents. You can see the new tabs that have been introduced here. Before, documents and settings were there, but now we have attributes, indexes, activity, uses. Like the database uses, the uses for individual collection also shows some cool usage statistics for your collection over time. Then activity shows what activity affects the collection. Right now the collection create was the only event that was affected, and this is the user that made this activity. We also have indexes. Now we can create index for our attributes or for our columns. Let us start by adding an attribute. Like before we had a rule with different types. Now we have attributes, and attributes correspond to the columns in tables, whereas collections correspond to a tables in a relational database. So let me start by adding a string attribute. I'll call this title and let's set the size to 255. Let's make it required and tap create. Next, let's add an enum attribute. let's make this status, whether or not this article is published, and set the elements to draft, and then published, make it optional, and then default value, make it draft, create. Let's add another attribute that again is a string. This time I want something like 60,000 as length, and I'll name this content. This will be the actual content of the article, and this can be optional and default can be null. So we have our attributes. Let's go to document and try to add a document. Once you go to add document, again here we have option to auto generate the ID or have a custom one. For the document, I'll stick to the auto generated ID, and let's title our article. Let's give a title to our article. The upcoming version of Appwrite. Let's make it draft. And let's tap create. Now we have auto-generated document ID instead of custom ones, and we have our document. If we go back to documents, we can see our newly created document listed here. And then if we go to indexes, we can add an index. Let's name it search index, and then let's make it full text and add title, and then also add status and tap create. So we'll be able to search our documents by the title and status. If we look at the activity now, we can see a bunch of different activities. We created collection, and then we created attribute, we created another attribute, we created another attribute. If we go to uses, it's still empty because we are working on console. Later, when we make request through our SDKs, this will show those statistics. Now that we have looked under database, I'd like to say that even with our users, we have support for custom ID. For our storage, we have support for custom ID for your files. For users, we have support for teams, we have support for custom ID, custom team ID. Even for functions, we have custom IDs. And this I hope will be a lot useful to many developers out there. In this video, we looked at briefly what's coming to Appwrite 0.12. We looked at the database refactor as well as new features added in other services like custom IDs. In the next video, we will look at the improvements in SDKs to work with the new database. Thank you. See you again in the next video.